Thanks for joining me. This is Danny, and welcome back to my Real Tech series. Today we are going to be doing some Cobble Works. That is basically Cobble Generation and all of the byproducts that we can get from cobblestone, including gravel, sand, and glass is basically what we can get in this pack. And of course, we don't have a easy single block magic block that is going to make all this stuff for us in this pack, so we're going to have to do it somewhat more immersively. This project is going to be fairly involved. We're going to need all of this stuff. So first of all, we're going to be generating cobble the vanilla style with lava and water. And then we're going to be using Steve's carts to break the blocks, to break the actual cobblestone block. So that's going to be kind of our cobble generator, is Steve's carts. So we're going to need a cart assembler because this is the first time we'll be playing with Steve's carts in this particular series, and also a cargo manager. And then the cart itself is going to require the standard hull, an iron drill, a solar engine, and internal storage. So since this is the first time we're doing Steve's carts, I'm going to go through this process with you of putting this cart together. And then we are also going to need some rails and a couple of advanced detector rails. And then we are going to have to do something about the pollution. Now, in this pack, when lava and water meet, they do emit emissions into the air. So carbon and sulfur, and that can cause problems in the area. So we are going to need to do some pumping of that pollution out of the area, and we're going to actually pump it into our greenhouse over there so that the carbon can make our stuff grow faster. In that setup, in the Cobble Generation setup, we're going to need a hopper and a redstone comparator and some redstone. And then when we're processing, we're going to take that cobblestone, we're going to process it using immersive engineering, and we're going to process it into gravel and sand and glass. So for that process, we're going to need 4 more hoppers and some hopper ducts just to get the stuff over there, just to get the cobble over to that area. And we're going to need a couple of basic drawers from storage drawers. We're going to be using 4 drawers for that. Some oak trim. We may actually need a little more than that. We're going to need a drawer controller and a controller slave. And then we're also going to need some conveyor belts and a dropping conveyor belt. And then we're going to use automated redstone in order to control the flow of these things based on what we need. So we're going to need actually 3 item sensors, and we're going to need 3 sensor readers. Now they're made 3 at a time, so that's why I made 6. So I'm just going to throw 3 of those in here. So that should be everything that we need. So I'm going to pick this up and then head over to our Cobble Generation area, which is actually hiding back here because it's going to be a tiny itty bitty bit ugly. So this is going to be our Cobble Generation area. There's a couple of reasons that I have it where it is. First of all, we're going to be bringing the cobblestone into this area, which is where we're going to be processing it into the gravel and sand, and then also the glass in these furnaces. So we want it close to that area. Also, we're going to need to be able to pump the pollution over into our greenhouse over there. So that's why we have it down low, because pollution floats up. It's harder to get it to come down. So we have it down here. Now I have a glass top in here because we're using the solar engine with our Steve's carts. And we want it to be able to, well, it has to be able to see the sky. In fact, it has to have a completely clear view of the sky. Like, it can't even have translucent blocks like leaves, but glass should be fine. This is chiseled glass, so it should actually work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a cobble generator, probably like right over here. It's just going to be a really simple cobble gen thing. Let's see, I'm just going to break into this wall, 2 blocks, and whoops. And that's where we're going to place the lava. I'm actually going to go down here, and then we're going to place the water there, and the water will just fall right into that since it's further down. So that's going to be step 1, is to actually produce the cobble. To produce the cobble. So we put water there, it flows down. We put, actually I'm going to keep that bucket. We put lava over here. It's actually going to place a block there, I think. Yeah, it puts a thing there. So, okay, so now there's our cobble. So now if we break this cobble, it's just going to be produced again. So it's just a basic vanilla cobble generator. So we have infinite cobble there. And then I'm going to set up actually, let's get our Steve's cart going, because that's going to take some time. So So we're going to need these things. So the cart assembler from Steve's Carts allows us to assemble carts. And to do so, we just put the parts of the carts that we want. So first of all, we need a hull. So this is kind of the body of the cart. And then we put all the things on it that we want. So if you're not familiar with Steve's Carts, basically what it is, it's a modular cart system. So we can make carts that have all the pieces that we want. So the hull, like I said, is the basic kind of shell of the cart. There are different levels of hulls. Actually, there's another one, yeah. So there's different levels of hulls, and the difference between them is how much modular complexity there are allowed in them, and the modular complexity cap, and also how many engines we can have on and other add-ons. We actually need the standard hull because of the complexity cap. So essentially, we put a bunch of little pieces on this cart. And like, for instance, we have an iron drill that's going to go into the tool section. And each piece that we put in here has a modular cost. The drill has a modular cost of 3. This iron drill, this is actually a very cheap drill. It's one of the lowest level drill. Actually, I think it's the lowest level drill, which is going to be fine. Oh, actually, oh, yeah. Okay, so the iron drill, and then there's a basic drill, which requires diamonds, and then the Galgadorian drill, which is ridiculously expensive. And the hardened drill is actually the next one. The hardened drill is actually really expensive, too. We only need this. This is actually going to do a 3x3 area. We really only need to break 1 block, so that's going to be fine. Now, the solar engine has a higher modular cost. This is a modular cost of 20, and that's the reason we need the standard hull. Now the total cost of modular cost is 23, so we're well within the modular capacity. The modular capacity is 200, which means that the total modular cost cannot go higher than 200, but the complexity cap means that each item cannot be greater than that complexity cap, and in this case the complexity cap is 50. The next lower hull, which would be the cheap wooden hull, has a complexity cap of 15, so the solar engine would not work in there. I want the solar engine for a couple of reasons. One, because it doesn't produce pollution, because it's obviously using the solar power. If we have a coal engine in there, it's going to add to the pollution in this room, which I guess wouldn't be too terrible since we're already going to be producing pollution over here, but less is better. Also, of course, then we don't have to feed it with iron. It would be really hard for us to set up. I mean, we'd have to have a whole like iron feeding system down here to manage that. So this is going to make this much easier. And then we need storage. Now I'm doing an internal storage because it's the smallest. I want a small storage in this thing, and we'll kind of see why in a bit, because there are multiple storage options, and most of them take slots. Like they'll either take the top slot or the sides or the back or whatever. The only thing that's open is the sides, because, oh, actually the back is open also because we're using the solar engine. So we could theoretically do side chests as well. They're a bit more expensive. They require the crafting in Steve's Carts is kind of crazy. It's definitely a rabbit hole of crafting. You have to dig into all these things. Actually, these are bad examples that I'm looking at, but yeah. So a lot of this stuff, I did the crafting off camera. I'm not going to show you all the crafting recipes because that's boring. And you can look at them in JEI. I'm going to assemble the cart. Now, the more complex this is, the higher the modular cost, the longer it's going to take to assemble. In this case, this one's going to take 8 minutes and 7 seconds. That's why I wanted to get this going right away. And then it's also going to require some coal. So we say assemble some charcoal. I'm going to throw that in there. So now we can see that here's the fuel level and the progress is here. So we got 8 minutes, 1 second, 8 minutes, counting down. After 8 minutes, we'll get that cart. In the meantime, we're going to do some other stuff. So we need to get some vents in here in order to pull the pollution out of here. We don't want the pollution to get stuck in here. Pollution floats up. Actually, that's why I have this here, that big wooden thing, because we don't want the pollution floating out and then up into the sky, because that's going to cause us all kinds of problems, because these cobble generators, they produce a lot of pollution, quite a bit. So we're going to just put some vents up here. And then we're going to run these all the way to, actually, do I want to? Yeah, I'll put these back when I'm done here, but we'll just run these vents all the way along here. to the greenhouse. And then at the end of this line of vents, we're going to have to put a pump. So pollution of the realms gives us pollution, and we can take that pollution and we can pump it into a greenhouse, and it'll make things go faster, but only the carbon pollution. Now this system is going to produce both carbon and sulfur pollution. We don't want sulfur pollution in there. I think that's the level I want that at. So we're going to put this filter here. The filter is going to filter out all of the carbon pollution, or it's going to filter out all of the sulfur pollution. And then at the bottom of this, we're going to put a pump. And that is actually going to cause it to pull the pollution along the line of vents. And then we need to give the pump a redstone signal. Okay, so we're going to put a redstone signal into that pump. And then we're going to just connect these all with vents. So the pump at the end of the vent line that goes into the chimney is actually going to cause it to basically suck up any pollution that gets near these vents. Throw some dirt here. So our Cobble Gen is going to produce... Actually, probably should have put the Cobble Gen on that side, shouldn't I? The Cobble Gen is going to produce pollution. It's going to float up, and eventually it's going to drift over to the cobblestone vents. And then the cobblestone vents will pull it, because of the pump, into our greenhouse. Okay, so I decided to move the cobble over here, the Cobble Gen on this side. That way the pollution will be closer to the vents. It's actually, there is something in this block space, that glass, so the pollution won't drift into that block space. It will stop right here, and then the pollution vents will pick it up right away. Okay, so now let's get our rails set up. And the cargo manager. The cargo manager is basically the block that allows us to pull stuff from the cart and put stuff in the cart. And it's basically kind of it's a cargo manager. It's an inventory manager. So we are going to be running the tracks past this, but we're going to need a advanced detector rail in front of it. This is from Steve's Carts, and it'll basically have the cart stop and do what it's supposed to do until it's done doing what it's supposed to do, and then it goes again. We can also use the advanced detector rail to stop the cart under... like just based on redstone signal. So the cart will stop here unless this thing has a redstone signal. There's also some more advanced configuration we can do with this, but that's all we're going to need for this particular situation. And then of course we want to run the track past this piece of cobblestone so that it breaks it. And let's see, how are we doing here? We have, oh, it's done. Okay, yay! Okay, so let's see how this goes. So basically, I'm going to set it like here for now so I can stand by it. So you can see it's bringing out its solar panels. It will always have access to the sky here, so the solar panels will always be running. And then let's hope it doesn't break any other blocks. So it's actually stopped there because of the detector rail. So for now, I'm just going to put a lever there. And for now, I'm going to make a lever to put there. Okay, so it broke that block, and now what it's going to do is it's going to sit there until its inventory is full. So it's going to fill... This is one of the reasons I wanted the small inventory, because I don't want there to be too large of a time gap between the breakings of the cobblestone, or between the time that it starts breaking cobblestone and the time it drops it off. So it's basically going to do 9 stacks of cobblestone at a time. And as soon as it's full, as soon as the inventory is full, it's no longer going to be able to break stuff, so that it's going to continue on. And then in here, we're going to tell it that we want it to drop the stuff off. So this is the green side. So when we go inside the cargo manager, we can see that we can configure the green side here. And we can say that we want to interact with the storage slots. And we want it to go this way. So we click on this to go from the cart to the manager, or from the manager to the cart. In the case, all we're doing is pulling. We just want to pull everything out of that cart. So all the cobblestone will end up in this in this cargo manager. So that's it. That's our Cobble Gen. That's kind of the end of that. So now what I want to do is put a hopper underneath this. So to get this thing working, to stop the cart, because the reason we want to stop the cart is if we are full of cobble, we don't want it to continue doing this. Otherwise, actually what it'll do is, if we're full of cobble, if this thing gets backed up, then this guy is going to get full, and then it'll just keep going around and around in circles, and it'll never stop. And we don't really need it to do that. So, I'm going to get, actually I want to get under this thing and put a dummy block there. Put a hopper down there. Oh, whoops. In order to pull everything out of here. And then we are going to check the inventory of the hopper. And we're going to say, if there's anything in this hopper, we want this thing to stop. So what we're going to do... Oh, actually, I need a redstone torch. Add that to the list. I'm going to set up a NOT gate so that... Oh, and we need the comparator. Place a block there, and then I'm going to have a comparator facing away from the hopper. So that way we're going to get a redstone signal based on what is in that hopper. Okay, so the detector rail is above this block. I'm going to put a redstone torch right there. And then we're going to set up a NOT gate so that this guy outputs here and then there. So if we have a redstone signal here of 2 or more, it'll turn that torch off, thereby causing the cart to stop on that thing. So the cart will continue on if there is... Okay, it's still off. If there is very little, yeah, if this is a power of 1 or less, meaning that this is 1/16 full, the cart will continue on. If it's 1/16 full or less. So if it's any more than 1/16 full, then the cart will stop. And I'm going to have to put a slab there. Okay, so that's all set. Actually, if we look at the corner of our eye here, we can see right now it's on. If I put this extra 15 in here, it turns off. And then it turns on. So basically that will prevent it from overflowing. It'll just shut this whole system down when we have what we need. So there, did you see? There was some sulfur there just now. And it went up to the vents and then it just disappeared. So then that brought it out to our tree farm greenhouse over there, and the sulfur would have been absorbed by the filter. What are we doing here? Oh boy, this this is a little bit slow. Maybe I should have done the more advanced drill. The nice thing about this drill is it requires iron to repair. The advanced one requires diamonds, or the basic or whatever it's called, requires diamonds to repair. That's our cobble gen. It's done. We are now generating cobblestone, and we're storing it in there, and we're shutting it off when we have enough cobblestone. Alright, I cleared away some space here for us to set up our Cobble Works. And what we're going to have here, actually I'm going to just place 3 blocks there, put 3 hoppers into it, and then I'm going to break those blocks. We're eventually going to have conveyor belts here, but I don't want them there yet until we're all set. And then the drawers are going to go up here. And there's actually going to be some drawer trim going into the ground here. So I'm actually going to dig a little bit of a basement down there. But for now, I'm just going to stick the oak trim there. So the oak trim, if you're not familiar with the way these work, you can make basically a network out of storage drawers where you can access the inventories of all the different drawers using the drawer controller, as long as the drawers are connected. We're going to connect the drawers to the controller, which is going to be over there. I'm using this oak trim. So we're going to have a line of oak trim over there, and that will just basically continue the network. First, I'm going to lock these drawers so that they only allow what we're going to put in them right now. We're going to have glass in this drawer. That's going to be kind of our final product. We're going to have sand in this drawer. Now, of course, it's going to get pulled out by the hopper for now, but that's fine. We'll have cobble there, and we're going to have gravel here. So that's kind of the sequence of... Now, the cobble we're going to be getting from our cobble farm, that we're going to have piped over here. when we put cobblestone in our grinder over here, we are going to get gravel. When we put gravel in the grinder, we're going to get sand. And when we put sand, of course, in the furnace, we get glass. So, so we're actually going to need another filter over there. So then what we're going to do is we're going to set up our sensors. So now we only wanted to pull cobblestone if we need gravel. We only wanted to pull gravel if we need sand. We only wanted to pull sand if we need glass. So that's where our sensors are going to come in. So we're going to set these sensor readers on the hoppers so that they end up sending a redstone signal into the hopper. Actually, if we look at one of these, if I place it here, you can... Oh, no, that's not going to... Pretty sure there's a way for me to place it so that it's kind of upright. No. Okay, there we go. So we can see that this side is the output side. So it's going to be outputting a redstone signal into those hoppers under certain circumstances, which we will see shortly. So then we can take our item sensor and shift right click on an inventory. And that will bind it to that inventory. And then we're going to have to put a filter in it. So even though there's only one thing that could potentially be in this inventory, we still need to tell it what we want it to look at. So if we look at the item filter right now, in fact, if we hover over it in JEI, we'll see that it's reading empty slots. And it also tells you a little bit of information about it when you hold down the shift key. Modulo for counting items uses block drops and items laying around if the target block is not an inventory. In this case, it is an inventory. And then you right click to configure the filter. So this is our filter. We're going to tell it we want to read glass. So now if we look at it, it says glass instead of saying empty inventory items. So now we can tell this guy, or we can put this in here, and we can see that it's currently outputting a signal of 6 because there is 6 glass in there. It can output up to 255 because automated redstone has larger redstone signals, so it can do more than 0 to 16. We actually only wanted to output a redstone signal if we have at least, let's say 400. This thing can hold 2,048 items, so that's 32 stacks. We don't want it to fill up before we stop pulling stuff because there's going to be things that are going on in progress, so we don't ever want this thing to let this thing fill up, or else we're going to end up with some overflow. So I'm actually just going to set it to like 256 for now. So what we can do is we can tell this guy, we can give it basically math that's relative to the signal that it gives us. So we can multiply it by a particular number, or we can add by a particular number. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add by negative 256. So basically what that means is it's going to subtract the number by 256, and that's the signal that it's going to give us. So right now it's giving us a minus 248 because we only have 7, which basically means it's not outputting redstone signal at all. So once we reach 255, didn't I type 256? I thought I typed 256. Once we reach 256, then this thing will start outputting a redstone signal of 1. And of course it'll increase as more stuff comes in, which will then turn this hopper off because, you know, that's how vanilla hoppers work. So then, in other words, when we have enough glass, we're going to stop outputting sand into this hopper. And the hopper will also stop outputting to the conveyor belt that's going to be behind it in a minute. And then we're going to do the same thing here. We're going to take another item sensor and we're going to shift right click on the sand, and then we're going to grab a piece of sand for a filter. And we're going to put that in this sensor, and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to say 256. I'm actually probably going to increase these numbers later. But for now, I just want to get a little bit of all these things and just see it in progress and make sure that it is turning off when it's supposed to be turning off and all that. And then the same thing over here. We're going to shift right click on the gravel drawer. And then we're going to grab a piece of gravel out of this hopper and add that to, where did it go? Add that to the filter, and we're going to put that in here, and we're going to do minus 256. 56, okay. And then actually we have to hit enter in order for it to register it, and then we can hit escape to get out of that. Now we have to do a little bit of filtering. So when stuff comes out of the crusher, it's going into this filter. The sand and gravel are going to continue on this way, and the well, anything else is going to go up to the furnace, so that's like for ore doubling. And then we are actually going to have the drawer controller right there. We're going to have the dropping conveyor belt going over the drawer controller. So essentially what that's going to do is it's going to make it so that anything that can go in these drawers will get dropped in through this conveyor belt. Anything that can't will continue on, and it'll end up in this chest. So that's going to be our ore doubling drop, and then we're going to have to connect. Well, actually, we're going to need a hopper here going into that, and that's basically connecting to the hoppers that are pulling out of the furnaces. Then we could just cover that up, and then we're going to have trim. The storage drawers trim in order to make this a complete storage drawer network. So now that thing is connected to our storage drawers over here. This is just temporary, by the way. So if we throw, say, sand on this, well, actually we can even throw it on this conveyor belt, we should see that it continues on here, and then it disappears into there. It ends up in here, and it should now be here in this hopper. We're going to be inputting cobble, gravel, and sand into the system. So they're going to end up going this way into this item router, which will have them continue on. So all three of those will end up on that conveyor belt. Now the sand, we don't want to end up in the crusher. We want that to end up in these furnaces. So what we're going to do here is we are going to break that one, and then we're going to put a filter there. So I have an item router from Immersive Engineering, and what we're going to do here is we're going to say on the bottom side, we have to go get a piece of sand, our one piece of sand. We're going to say on the bottom side we want sand to go. So it's going to let everything else drop into the crusher, but the sand will drop down here, which will end up going into the furnaces. And we have a splitting conveyor belt here, which means half the sand will go over here and half the sand will go over there, which will allow us to produce the glass in the most efficient manner possible. So now all we have to do is get that cobble over here and pull from these hoppers into that. But let me get the cobble over here first. So as we can see, our cart did stop, and that is because our hopper does have some stuff in it, so it is outputting a redstone signal, so that is stopping our cart. What we're going to do is we're actually going to use hopper ducts to input into this controller slave. So I extended our little line of trim here, and I added a controller slave to the end. Basically, the controller slave works almost exactly like the controller, like the drawer controller. Except that you can't manually input into it, but it basically, you can add a controller slave to a storage drawer network that has a controller, and then it just gives you another place to add stuff. So I'm using hopper ducts. Each of these hopper ducts actually has a stack inventory in it, so we're actually going to have a lot of storage of cobblestone. So this guy's going to be working pretty hard producing a lot of cobblestone to fill up all those hopper ducts before it gets backed up enough to cause the hopper to back up and produce a redstone signal. And it's going to completely fill up that storage drawer. So, and whatever you click on, it's going to output to. The hopper ducts, they don't pull, but they do output. They accept inventory from hoppers and other things, other pulling things, or other inventories. Okay, or other pushing inventory. So now as soon as we put this here, we should see this guy emptying out. And as soon as it gets emptied, this guy's going to start doing its thing again. So I'm going to just block some of this off because we don't really need to see this anymore. So now all we have to do is set down the conveyor belts to pull from all these hoppers. And of course, because they're hoppers, we don't have to do anything special to pull from them. Oh, and that's going to want to go up and meet that conveyor belt. So we're going to use the engineer's hammer to stop that from happening. Actually, we got a shift click. Yeah, there we go. I'm going to end up picking a bunch of items up because I can't get... I suppose I could break blocks to get out of here. Alright, ready? Boom, boom, boom. That's it. So we don't have any sand coming out because we don't have any sand yet. But all that stuff should be going into the crusher. So then we have gravel coming out. The gravel is actually going to go into this drawer, and then it's going to come right back out. Woo! So as we're making gravel, it's going out again, and that's going to keep happening. So I guess the one kind of drawback to the system is, as long as we need glass, we're not going to have any of these other things available. As long as we need sand, we're not going to have these available. So once everything gets filled up, we should be good to go. But for now, like, we're not going to have cobblestone on hand here until we have, like, everything else. And our cart is over here breaking cobble again. Oh, and there's some pollution. And yeah, because this guy's empty, so hooray, this is working beautifully. Nice. Finally getting some sand. As you can see, the sand drops down and it ends up going in the furnace. So it gets caught by this dropping conveyor belt because it can go into these drawers. And then it gets pulled from that drawer because we don't have enough glass yet. And then of course when the glass comes out, it's going to end up dropping into that conveyor belt. So it shouldn't end up in here, it should end up in here. So we now have 16 glass. Hooray! So we're on our way to 256. At which point it will stop pulling sand, and then we'll start filling up with sand. Nice. This is awesome. We're almost at 256, 255, 256, hooray! So that means that when sand comes out, it is now going to be kept in this drawer. So this thing is now outputting a redstone signal of, well, more than 0. So this there's one piece of sand that's just kind of stuck in there for now, which is fine. It's not going to pull it out. It's also, the hopper is also not going to pull anything from this drawer as long as it's getting a redstone signal. So we're going to end up with probably a little bit extra. Oh no, it's all done now. Okay. So that's how much glass we have. If we take some glass out and it drops below 256, then it's actually going to start, the hopper is going to start letting some sand through again. And now this crusher does hold a lot of stuff, so depending on how fast we dump the stuff in there, we may end up with way more than 256 sand, because there might already be a whole bunch of gravel in there by the time this thing reaches 256, which is totally fine. That's why I went with such a low number. This system is almost entirely self-sufficient. Like, there is very little that we should ever have to touch. We're just always going to have this stuff here on hand. It's producing it from basically nothing. But there are two things that we need to keep an eye on every once in a while, although it's not something we will have to take care of very often. One of them is the drill. It does have durability. So you can see it does 50,000. It has a durability of 50,000. We're at 96% now, so we've got a long ways to go. We're going to have to drop an iron ingot in there, or maybe a couple of iron ingots in there to repair it if we want to get it back up. So we'll have to check on that every once in a while. And of course it's going to depend how often we're using those ingredients, because obviously if we're not pulling from there very often, it's not going to be working very hard. The other bit of maintenance for this is because of the whole pollution of the realms thing. We're going to have to keep an eye on this filter. You can see we're already at power 11. This filter is filling up fast. So we may actually want to have a diamond filter here instead of a gold filter because it holds a lot more. She just walks away, leaves everything fall. So we may want to have a diamond filter here once this one gets dirty. When this thing has a redstone signal of 0, that means it's full, and then it'll start letting sulfur through, and we don't want that. That would be bad, because it'll start killing our stuff in here, killing our trees instead of making them grow faster. Alright, this guy's about to do his last one. 64, so now he should move along. There we go. He's going to dump all of his inventory in here. one stack at a time, and this guy is pulling it. And then it's going to move on and do some more. Now, since there's only one in here right now, it's not giving us a redstone signal of 2, so that way it's not going to stop and wait until all this stuff is emptied, which is good. So it can keep moving. And now, actually, we're going to have some cobble coming in here, so we're going to have our guy's going to be making some gravel out of the cobblestone. And then it's going to dump the gravel back in there to make sand. And it's going to keep doing that until we have enough sand. And then it's going to start filling up the gravel. And then it's going to start filling up this. So that is a complete build. This is completely done. It is almost entirely it's almost entirely hands-off, except for those couple little maintenance things that we have to do. So if you do have any questions about this or whatever, feel free to leave them in the comment section below. If you have any ideas or just want to say hi, whatever, feel free. And if you did enjoy this, don't forget to click the like button and to join me next time. Thanks for watching. Bye.